This podcast is made possible by Planful.
Hi, this is Craig Abrams, President and CFO of Playtika, and you are listening to the CFO Thought Leader Podcast.
This is episode 728.
We were 1 year in to our cloud transformation journey. So one of the things I pretty much spent the first few months doing with the team is ensuring that we understood what were the assumptions, what was the pipeline, where's that growth coming from? And the things that we looked at, as you would expect, is how can we expand with our existing customers? How can we attract new customers? So through new logos. How can we ensure that we're not losing existing customers? So through erosion or cancellations. So we did a lot of work, and we spend at least weekly kind of looking at what does our pipeline look like for the current quarter, but also for the next 12 months.
Hi, it's Jack. On today's show, we speak with CFO Claire Bramley of Teradata. From the very start of our talk with CFO Claire Bramley, she lets us know she has long been part of a bigger conversation. The everyday back and forth discourse that punctuates decision-making inside a business. Bramley tells us if you can't explain it to the business, if you can't explain it to the customer, it doesn't matter how great an insight you might have or idea you might have. If they don't get it and you can't communicate it, then it's wasted. Along the way, Bramley tells us she gleaned a number of insights that finance leaders should keep top of mind before they join the broader discussion. Our talk with CFO Claire Bramley begins after this. In an ever-changing world, it can be tough to keep up with the latest FP&A trends and innovations that keep you ahead of the game. Luckily, there's a podcast for that. Tune in to Being Planful, the podcast for finance leaders and planning experts, and stay in the know about what's happening in planning and forecasting. Guests like influencer Chris Ortega, Boston Red Sox CFO Tim Zhu, and Brian Lapidus of AFP will keep you up to speed on how you can put finance in the driver's seat this year. Find the full episodes at beingplanful.com or wherever you get your podcasts. P.S. Think you might make a great guest on the show? Shoot host Rowan Tonkin an email at beingplanful@planful.com. Hey, hello, we're speaking with Claire Bramley, CFO of Teradata. Claire, welcome.
Thank you, Jack. Pleasure to be here.
So, Claire, as always, we begin with this question. We're going to ask you to look back for us and try to identify some of those experiences you feel prepared you for this role that you have today, the CFO role. What would come to mind for you?
Absolutely. So I think the breadth of experience that I've had the opportunity to go through is really helped me in terms of preparation. I don't think I realized this when I was early in my career, but people were very helpful at giving me new opportunities. And I'll be honest, I kind of took it for granted at the beginning. But what I realized very early on was all these opportunities give you different perspectives and give you different experiences. So I was lucky enough, for example, to spend almost 15 years at HP, a big global international company. And I joined HP as a technical accountant. So coming in very much having done technical accounting and kind of, I would say, the more traditional view. And when I joined HP, I went straight into an FP&A role. So much more about analysis, much more about data and business support. And that was, I would say, an intense learning for me at the time, but really, really helpful, because immediately it made me realize that you have to be able to understand the business to add value. And so I spent many years at HP, different geographies, supporting different business partners, and also going back into a more technical role as the controller. And I found that being able to see different people's perspectives and looking at how things happen end to end is really, really important for a CFO. I have an interesting story to tell. So when I was in Geneva in Switzerland early in my career, I was very much pushing for the country perspective, and I was pushing corporate, and I was pushing the worldwide team. And I think, to be honest, I think they were like, who is this person? She's becoming really quite annoying, because obviously I was like, I have my perspective, my view of the world. And then guess what? My next role was in corporate. And so suddenly I was on the other side of the fence looking back at the country perspective. And I suddenly realized that actually it's really important to have both views. There's not just one way of looking things. There's not just one way of seeing the world. And so, yeah, that was a really important experience for me. And yeah, learn early on to always consider other perspectives, other views, and how it all fits together. And I think that has made a huge difference in terms of preparing. And I do think having the technical background as well as the business support background is really important, and how you connect the two through communication. I think one of the things that as accountants we maybe underestimate early in our careers is that importance of communication. And now you will hear me talk about it all the time, Jack. I'm always saying, if you can't explain it to the business, if you can't explain it to a customer, it doesn't matter how great your insight is. It doesn't matter how great your idea is. If they don't get it, and you can't communicate it, then it's wasted. So yeah, that's a few examples of my experience.
Yeah, I wanted to, you mentioned how when you first joined HP, you were really you were hired as a technical accountant. You had another role in finance previous to HP in the UK, which is where you join HP.
That's right.
And then, and I think you, if I'm not wrong about this, you've been to Geneva twice. You had two, and of course, you land in Palo Alto with the corporate headquarters, as you just described. So why Geneva and HP? Does HP have a certain base there, or what was the significance of Geneva and HP in your career?
Yeah, so that was actually our EMEA headquarters for the company. So yeah, so there was a lot of the regional. So EMEA is Europe, Middle East, and Africa. So that was our regional headquarters. So a lot of the regional team were based there. So I did start in the UK. And again, this was a learning for me, honestly, which I kind of had to be pushed a bit by family and friends to kind of take opportunities as they come. But yeah, I moved a lot with HP, and I was lucky enough that I had a family that would kind of come with me. But we did UK to Geneva, Geneva to California. We went back to Geneva. We went back to California. So we've moved around a lot. And I think, you know, when I give advice to people that I talk to and want to hear about my experiences, lean in and take those opportunities. And when we first moved to the US, another fun story, Jack, both my husband and I did a preview trip to the US, to California. It says, would we like it? Would we settle there? Are we going to be happy? And we came back to Geneva, and Geneva's beautiful. I mean, it's a lovely place to live, completely spoiled in terms of, you know, personal life, but also from a work standpoint as well. Great place to work and live. So we went to California, went to San Francisco and Palo Alto and visited the office, and this traditional kind of corporate office. And we kind of left, and both of us were like, so what do you think? And we were both like, okay, you know, maybe we prefer Geneva. And neither of us were that actually excited about moving. But then again, it was like, this is an opportunity. You know, this is an opportunity to go and work in the American headquarters of a huge Silicon Valley icon company. And it's like, the worst that can happen is we don't enjoy it, and we have to find a way to get back, and again, so that lean in mentality and take that opportunity. And my husband was great for pushing me on things like that. Let's just go, let's try and see how it works out. And I've done a lot of that, just kind of, whether it's a new role, whether it's a move, with the family, let's lean in, let's take that opportunity, because I know that the experience adds value. I know that breadth of experience and getting different perspectives and different cultural inputs and different leadership styles is what makes me who I am today. And without those breadth of experiences, I definitely don't think I would be where I am today.
I just want to mention just some of the titles. Every company has different nomenclature, but I think it speaks to how you climbed at the ladder at HP. Forgive me, Director of Worldwide Personal Systems, Financial Planning and Analysis. This isn't supposed to be an accurate climb. I'm just going to throw out some titles so people get a sense. Vice President of Worldwide Financial Planning and Analysis, Head of Finance, EMEA, and then Global Controller, all very senior finance roles. HP, again, most everyone knows it's Silicon Valley, sort of rooted with the HP culture. But can you share something that would educate us somewhat about HP?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, honestly, culture is really important to me. So the culture was a great culture at HP. And as I moved to Teradata, which happened just over a year ago, one of the questions I asked the most when joining the company as the CFO was about the culture, because I think it's really important. And actually, there's very similar cultures between HP and Teradata. And I really was attracted to Teradata because of that culture. And that the culture is everybody's opinion matters. Everybody is treated with respect. If you have a seat at the table, you have a voice, and I had a great mentor that taught me it's important for your voice to be heard, sort of thing. And that's something that I see here at Teradata, the respect and inclusion. And people talk about glass ceilings and things like that. At HP and at Teradata, never had that experience. Has always been, if you're good at your job, you're willing to make the effort, and you have the right insights and information and value to add, they are very, very inclusive. And that's, again, why I love, we're doing a why love where you work at Teradata right now. And so many people across the company at Teradata talk about the people and the culture and the inclusion. And it was quite a big step for me to move from HP to Teradata after nearly 15 years in a company who they know me and I know them. But the culture there, the people there made it such an easy transition. And I think that's really important. To your point, in conference rooms, everyone has a say. It's not hierarchical. It's not elitist. It's very inclusive and very encouraging that, it doesn't matter who you are. If you have something to share, we want to hear it. We know here at Teradata that that best decisions and best solutions come from that diverse approach and diverse ideas and innovation. And that's what you see in our conference rooms. And that's what I love about Teradata.
We're gonna ask you about Teradata now. We're already there, but I wanted to just mention to listeners that we'll have a few more career-related questions for Claire, but we're gonna move into the business segment and ask you about Teradata, because not everyone perhaps knows exactly what sets this company apart or what's distinctive about it. It's a fairly sizable company today. But tell us about Teradata. What does it do? What are its offerings?
Absolutely. So we have a mission, a purpose at Teradata about transforming how businesses work and people live through the power of data. So being a finance person coming to a data company, we see our mission is to take complex data and analytics and turn it into solutions, answers, insights. So traditionally, Teradata actually was an on-premise solution, but a couple of years ago, we shifted our strategy, and we are now a cloud-first, but not cloud-only strategy. And what sets us apart is the fact that we are a hybrid solution. So we have a best-in-class on-premise, but also a differentiated cloud solution. And if you think about how much data you have in the world today and how many different places you have at global enterprises where you have this data, what we do at Teradata is we have the software that is enabled to use the data where it sits and where it resides, pull that together without moving the data, and enabling the largest enterprise companies in the world to do really high-end performance at scale analytics on their data. So we're supporting some of the biggest companies in the world with their data and analytics. And we started with many of them on-prem, and we're on this cloud transformation journey. We believe that hybrid is the future, so not 100% on cloud and not 100% on-premise. And we have a multi-cloud offering, which is best in class, like industry recognized, best in class. And the purpose of that software is to provide data and analytics that help large global enterprises have insights, have solutions, make better decisions.
So your world is it about unit economics then, and ARR and annual recurring revenue? I mean, this is the heartbeat of the finance function, or would you look at it differently?
No, absolutely. We are looking at our total ARR. We're looking at our cloud ARR, and to your point, our recurring revenue. One of the other things that differentiates Teradata, I think, from many kind of, I would say, cloud native or new customers, new startups, is the fact that we're actually very profitable and we're generating a huge amount of cash flow. So although top line growth is really important to us, we're really focused here at Teradata on profitable growth. And the generation of durable free cash flow. So, for example, we generate approximately $400 million of free cash flow annually, which when our cloud business is growing, 70, 80%, approximately 80% is our kind of outlook for the year, is obviously a great performance.
When you came into the office, your lines of sight, you could see the data, you could see the numbers and the metrics that you needed, but maybe you looked at the world a little differently, or maybe you prioritized a little differently. Can you just tell us a little bit what your dashboard might look like, how you might have, changed it because you prefer to look at things a little differently?
Yeah, so what we did, I think, one of the things that I needed to do very early on is, so within 3 to 4 months of arriving as a CFO, we had an investor day that had already been planned. So very quickly, I needed to get comfortable with the financial fundamentals of the company, but also our long-range plan. We were expected to go out with a 3 to 5 year kind of plan, and I had 3 to 4 months to plan for it, being new to the company. So as you can imagine, it was really important for me to ensure that we had a good dashboard that showed what our pipeline looked like. Where is that growth going to be coming from? And to ensure that all of the assumptions that we were modeling were supported by data and analytics. And that's quite hard when you're new to your transformation journey. I mean, I joined and we were 1 year in to our cloud transformation journey. So one of the things I pretty much spent the first few months doing with the team is ensuring that we understood what were the assumptions, what was the pipeline, where's that growth coming from? And the things that we looked at, as you would expect, is how can we expand with our existing customers? How can we attract new customers? So through new logos, how can we ensure that we're not losing existing customers? So through erosion or cancellations. So we did a lot of work, and we spend at least weekly kind of looking at what does our pipeline look like for the current quarter, but also for the next 12 months, to really ensure that we're moving through that kind of pipeline process and we have comfort as we give our external guidance out to the street for the current year, but also the long-term plan. So yeah, that dashboard is really important. And that's kind of all top line. And then obviously margin, profitability, cash flow, and our capital allocation strategy is something that I'm constantly ensuring that we're reviewing and assessing.
Did you restructure finance at all? Did you deploy your FP&A people differently? Did you make a key hire along the way? Anything? And again, it's only been 12 months deep, I think.
Yeah, that's right. Just over 12 months. So I've made a few changes. So actually, when I think about things, I think about people, process, and technology. So to your point, do I have the right people with the right experience? And are they getting the right support and development that they need? Then looking at the process in the sense of how are we doing things? Are we doing things in the most efficient way? And then technology, coming from HP, we're really big into automation. We talk about robotic process automation. We just installed a big ERP. So we looked at that piece as well. So when it comes to the team, I didn't make a significant number of changes on the finance team, but interestingly, I do have the CIO, the CISO, real estate, procurement. So my role as the CFO is actually beyond finance. So where I saw the opportunity was actually how do we work together better as one team, and how do we give better visibility of what we're doing to the company to ensure that we are enabling the business. So I made a few changes, but I didn't significantly restructure the team. What we focused on much more is about, are we set up in a way to really enable the business? I'm a strong believer that we are a support function. We are an overhead, a cost center. So we really have to ensure that we're giving that value to the business and showing that value. And that's a slightly different approach maybe than other people take. So I've spent more time talking to my team and talking to the business about the value that we bring. Is it focused in the right areas? Are there opportunities to improve? And that's what we've been working on, that kind of business enablement, that value impact that we have as a support functional team across multiple different areas, including finance.
You mentioned earlier that you felt Teradata's culture had some of the same characteristics of HP's. In speaking about culture and people and the talent market, the economic environment seems to be changing, but we know in Silicon Valley, talent is still, and hiring can still be tough. As a finance leader and stepping into the CFO role now, do you find talent becoming more of a priority than perhaps you imagined, or you see a necessity for it to become so?
I see it as a necessity, honestly. The people are everything to me as a leader. I do not believe that should be a one-man show, a one-woman show. So I genuinely feel the power of the team, that anything is possible. And I talk about this a lot. Together, when we're all moving forward together, anything is possible. And I don't think that's the case if it's just one individual. So yes, I think talent is a necessity. I think it has been a very interesting environment, actually, with regards to availability of talent and just the people moving. I mean, I moved in the pandemic to a new role, so there's been a lot of changes happening. But I think people, what they're looking for these days is slightly different. Like I said, one of the things I was focused on when I moved was very much about the culture and the company. Obviously, the role was very attractive, but if it wasn't the right company and the right leadership team, then I think that would have definitely stopped me from moving to Teradata. And I think lots of people have been reflecting in the last couple of years, who do I want to work for? Both as a leader standpoint, but also as a company. And I think things like culture, diversity and inclusion, focus on ESG, that's something I spend a lot of time talking about internally, externally. All of those things I think are really important. And then what Teradata did actually during the pandemic, which I think has made a big difference, we've gone fully flexible. So Teradata are saying you can work wherever you want. You do not have to come into an office a certain number of days a week. And I think what we found is that's very attractive to people. People have got used to that flexibility and wanting to be able to work wherever they are and being able to kind of be flexible between home and work life. Now that has advantages and disadvantages, as we all know, especially with young kids. But yeah, I mean, that flexibility and Teradata took that stance pretty early on, and we have seen a great attraction of talent. That is definitely, I think, worked in our favor, and people see the culture, see the flexibility that we provide, see that inclusion focus. And they want to work for a company like Teradata.
So you said that it's reflected in the how talent's been attracted to Teradata. I'm wondering, do you feel as if you have your lines of sight into the talent channel? I mean, whatever churn there might be, or net new hires is the number we keep hearing about. I mean, are these numbers that you're focused on as well, or you discuss with the chief people officer from time to time? I don't know what the changing rapport and management might be as you get focused on talent together.
Well, one of the advantages of working for a data and analytics company is we have a lot of data and a lot of analytics available to us. So internally, we all have, as leaders, and I have access to the whole company as well, a dashboard that's updated every day that tells me what does the attrition look like on a rolling basis, in a particular week or a particular month or quarter. And not only can I see what the numbers look like, I can see how many people have left who are potentially diverse, how many people we're hiring, are we moving in the right direction, where are they located? I mean, we have all of that information, and we have quarterly reviews on our organizational health to make sure that we're looking at that. So yes, this is something that we have been paying close attention to. I think every company saw an increase in their level of attrition through the pandemic and the Great Recession, but that's calmed down a lot now. Now, that doesn't mean people aren't moving, but we're very much back to, I would say, pre-pandemic levels when it comes to attrition. And I think now it's kind of, there's a lot more choice and options out there, and less people moving, which I think, which is good. But also, I do believe that, coming back to my point about experience and breadth of experience, if it's the right move for somebody, even if they're like one of my top talents, I would encourage them to go and get different experience if they think it's the right thing for them from a career development standpoint. They can always come back. That's the thing. I think it's really important as a leader not to kind of really stop people from moving to a new role or to a new company if it's the right thing for them. So obviously I try and give them that experience internally, but I do want to encourage people to get that experience, because I was lucky enough to do that. And as I said, I don't think I would be here without it. So I don't want to, as a leader, stop other people going to get that experience. And then we stay in touch. And if they want to come back, great. That's a great opportunity to bring people back after they've got different experience elsewhere.
As Teradata moves into this, embraces remote as well as, what best suits the employee, I suppose. Is engagement something that you're talking about, employee engagement, and how to measure that? And does the finance world intersect that, or is that sort of a workforce challenge for the human resources folks? Yeah.
No, we all, again, a great data and analytics company, we have access to so people joining, they do a survey. People leaving, they'll do a survey. We do pulse surveys, about engagement and different topics like health and wellness, diversity, inclusion. So every quarter we'll do a pulse survey on different topics, and twice a year that tends to be on engagement. And we can see again, are we trending in the right direction? People have an opportunity to give feedback and comments and on progress. So we are all, I look at it regularly, my team look at it regularly, and it's really important for Teradata. And we have actually very high engagement scores, which, considering as we were going through the pandemic, I think people were struggling, especially at the beginning, with that work-life balance. Teradata put on a lot of support and training programs and things to help people through what was for some a very difficult time. And so the engagement scores have actually been very strong. And I think engagement is also linked to understanding the mission and values of the company. So I think as we've gone through this transformation in the last 2 years, people have appreciated that clarity on what we're doing, where we're going, how we're competing in the market, and the fact that we're in a market that is growing, 30% plus a year, and we're growing faster than that in our cloud business. That also is very motivating for people, because as long as they understand how their role contributes to that overall mission and purpose, which I believe many people do.
Excellent. Thank you, Claire. We're going to move to what we refer to as our finance strategic moment question. And what we're looking for here is an anecdote or a story of some time in your finance career. God knows you've had many finance strategic moments. We're just looking for one, but it kind of revealed to you the strategic power of finance. Your lines of sight as a finance executive allowed you to see a risk. Maybe it was an opportunity, something, and you responded to it. Anything come to mind when we ask for a finance strategic moment?
Yes. So I think I would say, yes, several years ago, a strategic moment for me actually came out of a mistake, which not many people talk about. I think it's really important to we're not all perfect. We all make mistakes. So I remember I was in Geneva at the time, and I remember doing some work with the sales team. I was supporting a lot of the European business leaders there, and they're salespeople. They're salespeople. They're good sellers. And I remember going through the data and analyzing the data, and they kind of given me a story of like explanations as to why something wasn't what we were expecting it to be. And I remember taking their explanations on face value and not digging down to the next level of detail. And then I remember coming back to this maybe a month later and realizing the error of my ways. And I think a strategic moment for me is let the data tell the story. And I think that's probably why I've ended up at a data and analytics company, because as a finance leader, if the data is telling you something, keep asking the questions. If the answers that you're getting from the people and the data are not matching, there's a reason for that sort of thing. So it was a learning early on to say, let the data tell the story. Keep pushing on the data. So if I'm unsure of something today, I will just keep digging into the data. I won't just keep grilling questions. I think in the past, I just would have kept asking people questions. Now I'm like, let's just look at the data. Let's see what the data tells us, and then we can make the right decision. And that was a big strategic moment for me, because people like to influence, persuade, sell. And I think, a strategic moment is listen to the data. And if the data is not clear, keep digging into the data. And that stayed with me ever since. And as I said, now I'm at a data company, which is great. And I'm surrounded by people who have this similar mentality. So we're kind of data freaks here at Teradata, just because we know that's what gives you the insights. That's what gives you the answers, even when it's complex. That was a bit of a strategic moment for me, in the sense of I went more with the persuasion and the narrative and the commentary that people were telling me. And I didn't ignore the data, but I didn't dig into it as much as I could or should have at the time. And we made a decision that we ultimately had to correct and adjust, because the data was continuing to tell us that we should have maybe taken a different path.
Hey, it's Jack. I hope you're enjoying our talk with CFO Claire Bramley. I really liked her finance strategic moment because it brings to mind a conference table or corporate setting that so many finance executives know well and can relate to. It's where we see finance executives seated across from the company's top salespeople. I mean, the salespeople who excel in persuasiveness and gaining buy-in. This is what they do, after all. This is what made them successful as salespeople. How do you say no? The point is, there are more and more instances where finance no longer has to say no. Instead, it can say, let the data do the talking. Let the data say no. And so as CFO Bramley takes us to that ultimate finance hot seat, the one where 3 salespeople are pleading their case across the table, she serves up a very constructive response, one which at the same time, let's face it, it accents her company's offerings. Now there is a finance communicator. We return to our episode featuring CFO Claire Bramley. We're going to move to what we refer to as our mentoring round, where I get to ask you several quick questions intended to inform and inspire future finance leaders. We want you to think back not too long now, just about a year ago, or when you first stepped into the CFO role there at Teradata. You've learned a lot in a year. a lot's happened in a year, no doubt. Wondering what piece of advice you might have given yourself that first month as you joined and stepped into it. Going back in time, other finance leaders will find themselves, future finance leaders will find themselves in a similar 30-day period. What advice would you give them? What would you give yourself if you could go back in time?
Yeah, so I think I'll relate it to, it's like when you have children. People always tell you when you have a child that make the most of it because they grow up really quickly. And, when they're 1 and 2, you're like, yeah, I get it, sort of thing. And I would actually tell myself the same thing, that first year, like, flew by. The first 6 months, the first year flew by. And you have all of these plans. I remember I did a 30, 60, 90-day plan, and I did a 3, 6, 9, 12 month. Had all these wonderful plans. And at the end of the day, before you know it, you're at the end of 12 months. Now, I am super excited and happy about everything we've accomplished in the last, 12 plus months. Don't get me wrong. But I do think I would go back to myself. It's like having children. The time will fly. So if there's anything that you want to do now, make sure you do it, because before you know it, the year has passed, sort of thing. So I think that's important. And I think the reason I raised that is you do have to prioritize. I think I came in thinking I could do everything. If I look back at my board presentation I did to get the job and all these great initiatives and plans, I think they probably thought it at the time, if you'll be lucky to get all that done in the first 6 months or the first 12 months. So it's great to have these grand plans, but make sure that you understand what the top, 3 or 4 things are. And I have to say, my CEO, Steve McMillan here at Teradata, he was very good at that. He was like, right, this is what I need from you. These are the top 3. And I was like, is that all? I was kind of like, only 3 things, sort of thing. So he was really good at saying, these are the 3 things I need, focus on this. So he was great at driving that. But I think I came in with thinking that I'd be able to do everything in 12 months. And I think the reality is that that's not possible. So make sure you prioritize and be realistic about how quickly that time is going to pass and how much time you have, because you're new, so you need to spend a lot of time listening and learning, and some of the decision making should happen later when you're much more informed. So yeah, that's something I would just kind of be a bit more realistic about what you can accomplish when you start.
Was there a recruiter who brought you over, or was it a relationship, or what happened?
No, it was a recruiter. Yeah, so I actually wasn't actively looking. And, you get approached.
You were at HP a long time, so you had turned down a lot of recruiters before. But this time you said yes.
Yes.
Was there something, and again, we know you related to the company and the culture, and there's so much happening there, but was there something that finally you said yes? Yeah.
Yeah, so the initial I did my classic, not really looking, et cetera. And the recruiter was like, just speak to the CEO, just informal coffee, just to get to know so they caught me then. So, just have coffee, just have 30 minutes. And his, the way that he talked about the market, the technology, the opportunity, and the company culture and what he was driving at Teradata, I was like, wow, who would not want to be a part of that journey? It's so exciting. We're on a cloud transformation. We're moving the company forward. We're looking at how we do things differently. It's in a really exciting market that, because data is growing, the market is growing. So, and then because I have a tendency to look at data and analytics, that was kind of hit the mark too. So when you talk about what we're accomplishing and what the opportunity was, at that point, I was like, okay, I need to go and do a bit more research. So about the company and about the opportunity and everything. And then one thing led to another. But yeah, I think some of the board were surprised how many culture questions and leadership questions I asked, sort of thing, because yeah, that was my biggest fear, was going into a company where I didn't fit culturally, because we all spend a lot of time at work. I want to love where I work. I genuinely want to love where I work. And I know that the culture and the purpose, like what we're trying to accomplish, and the mission and purpose is really important to me. So definitely happy with the move I made, and I think Teradata are on a great journey, still in the middle of our transformation journey, but making great progress, and excited about the next few years as well.
So we always like to ask our guests to reflect a little on the personal side for of themselves. We're wondering if you have a personal habit or part of a daily routine that you're known for. It might be something more that a family member would point out to us, something you do that's what Claire does. Yep, that's Claire. And anything you can share with us?
So I think personally, I know, and I think most people know this about me, I kind of have different, what I call buckets that I need to fill throughout the day or throughout the week. And if one of those buckets are a little bit low, I'm not going to be on my game. And it's very much about mental and health wellness. So, I am work out at, 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning, even if it's just 20 minutes meditation or a quick dumbbell hit. I do have to get that kind of wellness, health hit first thing in the morning. I like to feel like I've accomplished something. So like productivity, that we've achieved something today. And then there's that kind of personal element, so connection with either the family or friends or etc. And so I kind of have these three, I would say, buckets that I think if I can keep them all full on a daily, weekly basis, then I'm at the best version of myself. And, people will say, you can see if one of them's dropping, like if I stop exercising because of travel or something like that. It's like, yeah, Claire's struggling a little bit energy wise because she's not getting, that kind of physical healthiness, well-being. So that's part of my philosophy. And I think everybody knows it's important to keep me in balance, and everyone does what they can to help me, which is great.
Claire, would you have a book recommendation for us?
So two of my favorite books, one's kind of more of a leadership book, and one's more of a personal book that I relate to. So Speed of Trust by Stephen Covey, going back to my point about it shouldn't be a one-woman show, and it's all about the team and the talent and contributions of that team. So I think that book lays it out really well. When I first joined Teradata, there's an extract of the book that I sent to all my team and said, this is really important to me. Like, I'm going to completely trust you from day one. You're all subject matter experts in your area. And I think that moves us along quickly. If I'm second guessing or double checking everything that my great team are doing, it's a waste of my time, and Teradata are not getting the full value from me. So that Speed of Trust book is one of my favorites from a leadership standpoint. And then from a personal standpoint, which some people were surprised about because I'm normally quite, as I said, data-driven, The Secret by Rhonda Byrne. And I think that comes back from personal experience of believing in yourself and believing that anything is possible. And I'll tell a personal story just to kind of put that into context. So before I joined HP, so early on in my career, in the days that flyers used to get put through the mail about roles and opportunities, there was a flyer that came through my door saying, these are the things that you need to do to do this job. And I remember looking at it going, oh, that company looks great, that job looks great. And I went through the list of requirements, and I think there was 6 or 7 on the list, and one of them I didn't meet. So I was like, oh, that's a shame. And then just like put the flyer to one side and didn't do anything about it. And then I was having dinner with my father, who unfortunately has since passed, but having dinner with my father, and I was telling him about the job. And he's like, oh, so what did the recruiter say? And I was like, what do you mean? He's like, well, I assume you called them. No, no. And he was just like, well, what do you mean, no? I was like, are you going to call them tomorrow? I was like, no, I didn't meet the requirement, sort of thing. And he was just like, are you kidding me? There's like 7 things, and there's one thing that you don't think you meet, and you didn't even make the phone call. And that was really like a aha moment for me, both from a personal standpoint, but also from a career standpoint, about leaning in and kind of like just because you're maybe not the perfect candidate doesn't mean that you're not the best candidate, sort of thing. And it turns out I did call them and I did get the job, and one thing led to another. And that was, and so I think the secret kind of pulls that part of me in the sense of, the law of attraction, focus on it, work hard, this can be yours. Anything is possible. So that was and I tell that story a lot to especially female mentees, because I think we naturally do we have to tick all the boxes. We do have to be the perfect candidate. And I think that's a really important lesson I learned early on, which I was lucky enough because then I learned from that. But I think many women especially do hold themselves back because of they don't believe in themselves. And so if there's any message I'd want to pass out there to anyone, female or male, believe in yourself, believe in your capabilities, because anything is possible. You need to work hard for sure. It doesn't come on a platter, but go after it, lean in, and make the most of the opportunities. And I think that's one of the reasons I did happily move from, across the world multiple times and, move around different jobs. One of my promotions, like you mentioned my career, one of my promotions at HP, I got the call from the controller at the time when I was on maternity leave with my first child saying, do you want to become a VP? Do you want to be, like the promotion? And I think a lot of people, including me earlier on, would have been like, not the right time, not a good time to be thinking about going into a new, bigger job, got a first child at home. And that at that moment, it's like, you don't know until you try. So lean in and seize those opportunities when they come. And sometimes you surprise yourself in terms of what you're capable of.
Nice. Thank you for those. We're up to our final question, where we're going to ask you to look forward finally. For the coming 12 months, we'd like to know what your priorities are as CFO of Teradata.
Absolutely. So I will, I go back to, from a functional standpoint, so as a kind of functional CFO, I really go back to that people, process, technology, the automation piece on the technology side, looking at how we can improve processes end to end, standardize and kind of make more simplify our processes, and ensuring that not only do we have the best people, but that we are looking after those people. To your point earlier, the importance of engagement, that we're developing those people. So from a functional area, my priorities are very much about those three areas, people, process, technology, so that we can best enable the business. Now, from a Teradata standpoint, when I kind of put my CFO hat on, we are continuing on our cloud transformation journey. We have a great future ahead of us in terms of future growth. We are aiming to be at $1 billion by 2025. We started in 2020 at $100 million, and we've got this target to be at $1 billion of cloud by 2025. So continue to focus on those metrics that we talked about, cloud ARR growth, but profitable growth over the next 12 months is really important, and making sure that we're investing in innovation. We are really focused on innovation. And I have to do a little plug, so forgive me, but we have a product launch coming up at the end of August at the New York Stock Exchange. So that's something that I think, again, is just going to take us to the next step of our transformation in terms of growing cloud and moving the company forward. So very excited about that.
Claire Bramley, thank you for joining us on CFO Thought Leader.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure to be here.
Hello, listeners. Do us a favor. Be certain to subscribe to CFO Thought Leader on Apple Podcasts, or if you're an Android user, check us out on Spotify or Google Play. If you liked the show, please recommend it to a friend.